It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the shocking report that suggests an officer at a notorious young offenders institution may have been the most prolific sex offender in British history. Neville Husband was jailed in 2003 for abusing teenagers at Medomsley in County Durham, where hundreds of young men were physically or sexually abused between 1961 and 1987. Today's report catalogues a string of missed opportunities to stop that abuse by the Home Office, police forces and prison managers. Durham Constabulary and the Ministry of Justice have both said sorry. I'll be speaking to a former inmate who says those apologies are empty words. Also ahead tonight, the Prime Minister insists he would never order an attack on a member of his own cabinet. It comes after Health Secretary Wes Streeting accused Number 10 of briefing against him, and claims that he's preparing to launch a leadership challenge. Plus, tributes to the Victims Commissioner, Baroness Newlove, who has died after a short illness. Baroness Newlove became a voice for the voiceless after the murder of her husband Gary in 2007. We'll be discussing her legacy. And after this spectacular show last night, we'll explain why a solar storm could mean an even better view of the Northern Lights this evening, if, of course, the weather allows. All that's come and much more on the UK Tonight. But we're going to start tonight with events in Washington. 20,000 documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein released by the Congressional Committee investigating the paedophile financier. Well, Donald Trump, the former Duke of York, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and Lord Mandelson are all mentioned in this huge batch of emails, articles and images. The day started with 3 emails released by Democrats, which appeared to show Jeffrey Epstein claiming that President Trump knew about his crimes and spent hours with one of his victims. The president says today's release is the result of the Democrats trying to deflect attention from the government shutdown, and his press secretary called it a manufactured hoax.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Ouija, that recently wrote that Miss Giuffre maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us.
Well, for more, let's bring in our correspondent David Blevins, who is in Washington for us tonight. And David, 20,000 documents, that's a huge amount of information to go through. But so far, what do we know about what's in them?
Yes, we are still working our way through those documents. They were released by the Epstein estate to the Oversight Committee. That is the congressional committee that has been investigating the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. But there are some highlights, I think it would be fair to say, among the emails. There is a 2011 exchange, for example, from Jeffrey Epstein to his then girlfriend and co-accused Ghislaine Maxwell, in which he writes, "I want you to realise that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." As you've just heard, the White House is alleging that the unnamed victim in that email was the late Virginia Giuffre, who never accused President Trump of any wrongdoing. There's then a 2019 exchange from Epstein with the author Michael Wolff, in which he writes, "Trump said he asked me to resign, never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop." Now, presumably, he's talking about being asked to resign as a member of Trump's club, because the president claims he threw Epstein out for being what he describes as a creep. But there is no context to these words, and I think it's important to stress that Trump has also alleged that he fell out with Epstein for stealing members of his staff. And then in 2015, there is another exchange, this time from Michael Wolff to Epstein in relation to how Trump should handle an upcoming interview. And in it, he writes, if he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt. So a reference to the potential leverage that Epstein would hold over Donald Trump if he won the election. Now, the White House, of course, is dismissing all of this just as a fake narrative.
Yeah, David, it's interesting, isn't it? Donald Trump has consistently and always denied doing anything wrong, distanced himself from Jeffrey Epstein. He's saying, and his press secretary is saying this raises glaring questions, calling it a hoax by the Democrats. How long can this hold? Because you could argue that there are glaring questions for Donald Trump to answer.
Well, it is the question, really, that we've been asking since Donald Trump returned to the White House, because this is the issue that really will not go away. And to some extent, it's because he fueled the conspiracy himself during the election campaign when he vowed that he would release the Epstein files. And then when he found himself back in the White House, his Attorney General said there was nothing to see in those files. The White House is doubling down on its suggestion that all of this is just a false narrative being generated by the Democrats to smear the president. Caroline Levitt says the only thing these emails show is that the president did nothing wrong. But the leading Democrat on the Congressional Committee looking into Jeffrey Epstein, Robert Garcia, says these emails raise huge questions for the White House about the nature of the relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. The president himself has also posted online a short time ago that this is just the Democrats generating what he calls the Epstein hoax, because they want to distract from a critical vote taking place on Capitol Hill tonight, which could bring to an end the record 43-day government shutdown. I think it's worth stressing, though, that if it does end the government shutdown, there's another potential pothole for the Trump administration, because a Democratic representative who's not been able to be sworn in will finally be sworn in, and she could tip the balance in terms of a discharge petition, a vote on Capitol Hill, which could ultimately lead to another vote on the release of those Epstein files.
David, thank you. David Blevins with the latest for us from Washington tonight. Now, a damning report has found that an officer at a notorious detention centre for young offenders may have been the most prolific sex offender in British history. Neville Husband is thought to have groomed and attacked hundreds of trainees in the kitchens of Medomsley Detention Centre. It happened between 1961 and 1987. Young men physically and sexually abused by staff at that centre, with the Home Office, the police and prison managers all missing a string of opportunities to put a stop to it. Our Chief North of England correspondent Greg Milam has this next report.
For the entire 26 years of Medomsley Detention Centre's existence, young men suffered horrific violence at the hands of staff. Police investigations have already revealed the extent of that abuse. Some staff have already been jailed. But an inquiry by the Prisons and Probation Ombudsman has found that the prison service, the police and the Home Office knew about the abuse but ignored or dismissed it. No surprise to victims like Eric Sampson, because even the police who took him there as a 17-year-old seemed to know.
The two police officers who were taking us there were saying, "You're going to get the hell kicked out of you here." The violence I had done to me was terrible. I was only small, see. I could have been killed in there. The amount of times I was knocked about, every day was hell on earth. Every day and night was hell on earth for the full 9.5 weeks. With all the abuse and obviously the sexual abuse I had done to us, it totally ruined my life. Totally ruined my life. I've never been married, I know, you know. But the thing is, what can you do, you know? It should never have happened in the first place. All that could have been stopped.
One member of staff, Neville Husband, the Ombudsman found was possibly the most prolific sex offender in British history. He is now dead. The victims failed by those in authority.
They regularly ask the question, had this been detected in 1961, then all of us would not have gone through this. And that's the question that haunts many of them throughout the night, that this could have been avoided if some people had discharged the duties that they were assigned properly.
But those representing victims at Medomsley say it wasn't alone.
I've spoken to men from 20 different detention centres and they complain about the same treatment. I think it was a systematic thing that these prison officers were cogs in a big machine which was designed culturally or by training to treat boys really badly.
The government today apologised to the victims at Medomsley. The Minister for Youth Justice wrote that the failings set out in the report are truly harrowing and we must ensure nothing like this ever happens again. Durham Constabulary has also apologised for what it called its historic failure.
I fully appreciate that the level of abuse and the consistency and time frame of abuse that we are dealing with will have affected their lives forever in a way that they have had to deal with this through an emotional, psychological and also a physical manner. And for that, again, I absolutely, wholeheartedly offer my apologies and just to say I am so sorry that we let you down.
Medomsley is now long gone. The Ombudsman said further prosecutions are unlikely. For many victims, even this report is far too little and far too late. Greg Milam, Sky News.
Well, earlier today, I spoke to former inmate at Medomsley Detention Centre, Peter Toole. I started by asking him to describe his time there.
Hell. Basically hell. Mental torture, physical abuse, and your liberty taken away from you.
You spent your 21st birthday in the centre. Yes. Can you tell me what that was like?
Apart from getting my head split open, it was terrible, to be honest with you. It was just, your birthday didn't exist in there. It was just another day.
Just a day to try and get through. What were the circumstances surrounding that day, your birthday, and your head being split open? Can you remember?
We're doing some kind of physical training around the parade square, and I just had a hernia operation, and I couldn't do the bunny hops properly, and the PE officer attacked us.
The centre held inmates who were all first-time offenders. You were a first-time offender, just 20 years of age when you went in there, and young men convicted of crimes that ranged from shoplifting and non-payment of fines to robbery. Vulnerable young men, not hardened criminals. You've described yourself as one of the lucky ones. What did you see happening to others?
Well, people were attacked with hockey sticks and stuff like that, and kicked downstairs and beaten up and stood on. Other officers hit them and attacked them. This was an everyday thing that occurred from when you woke up till you went to bed. It even happened through the night sometimes.
What did other inmates say to you about what they were going through when you were in there?
There was a lot of inmates in there that were very, very quiet. They were sitting looked like they were in shock. Now I know why they were in shock, but at the time I didn't. A lot of inmates wanted to escape. It was that bad. Some inmates were getting their arms broken or their legs broken, so they had to do PE.
Did you ever complain about your treatment? I'm sure as you were only there for a couple of months, you just wanted to keep your head down. But was the feeling that this was just how it was? You were in there for punishment because you committed a crime. That's why they'd sent you there. And I want to say rehabilitation, but, that doesn't sound like that was on offer.
There was nobody to complain to. The Board of Visitors come round once, and I think it was a Wednesday. And when they come round, you were told specifically not to say anything, and you know what would happen if you did tell. So people just never used to complain. But there's lads that got out, used to go to the police station, and they were chased, and they were told go away or you'll end up back in Medomsley. Things like that. But I didn't complain to the police or nothing. I just thought, this is Medomsley, take it on the chin.
Yeah. Well, there were some inmates that did speak out, several members of staff convicted after investigations by Durham Constabulary in 2001 and 2023, some years after the events. And those investigations found widespread abuse of more than 2,000 detainees at Medomsley. They were empowered by the fact that complaints were ignored or not dealt with properly. As you said, if inmates went to the police, they were chased away. The Ombudsman said in his report today the knowledge of abuse by the prison service, the police, the Home Office and other organisations of authority was ignored and dismissed. The authorities failed in their duty to keep detainees safe. What should happen, Peter, to the other authorities implicated in this?
Well, they should be punished. These people knew what was going on and did nothing about it. So at the end of the day, are these not criminals? These people are allowed it. Are they criminals? I think so.
What does accountability and justice look like to you? Because it will look different to every survivor of abuse.
I'll be quite honest with you, I think the investigation stinks. I don't believe Durham Police should have went through with that operation. It should be an independent police force. It was Durham Police investigating Durham Police.
The Ombudsman's report also pointed out that the victims never received a public apology, and the complaints process for children in custody remains the same today as it was at the time of the abuse. The government has since issued an apology and announced a new safeguarding panel to improve protections for children in custody. Durham Constabulary, who you mentioned there, publicly apologising for the force's historic failure to investigate decades of horrifying abuse. I would imagine, Peter, for you, the apology is the start of a process rather than the end. What do you want to see happen from this point on?
Well, apology to me, they're just words. If you're getting an apology off the officer that's hit you or abused you, maybe yes. But why should these people? It's just words to them. Why did they not apologise at the time?
Peter Toole speaking to me earlier, former inmate at Medomsley Youth Detention Centre. More on that on our website, skynews.com. In other news today, the Prime Minister condemned what he calls completely unacceptable attacks on West Streeting, saying he never authorised briefings against him. Sir Keir Starmer was speaking at PMQs after some of his allies told numerous media outlets he would fight any leadership challenge from another cabinet minister, such as the Health Secretary. Well, West Streeting has denied he was lining up a leadership bid and has hit out at the toxic culture in Downing Street. Our political editor Beth Rigby reports.
These are gloomy days. Downing Street in a crisis of its own making after Number 10's attempts to see off any post-budget leadership challenge badly backfired.
Is the Health Secretary a traitor or a faithful Prime Minister? Are there any traitors in Number 10, Prime Minister? Good morning.
The Prime Minister under real pressure after his allies warned that Keir Starmer would fight any attempted coup, with some anonymously dropping West Streeting in as the plotter-in-chief, triggering a backlash the Prime Minister's team did not intend.
I think whoever's been briefing this has been watching too much Celebrity Traitors, and this is just about the worst attack on a faithful. It's totally self-defeating briefing, not least because it's not true, and I don't understand how anyone thinks it's helpful to the Prime Minister either to suggest he's fighting for his job. I do think that going out and calling your Labour MPs feral is not very helpful. I do think that trying to kneecap one of your own team when they are out, not just making the case for the government, but actually delivering the change that we promised, I think that is also self-defeating and self-destructive behaviour.
And the man it really hurt wasn't West Streeting, but the Prime Minister, turning up in the Commons armed with an olive branch.
Any attack on any member of my cabinet is completely unacceptable. In relation to Health Secretary, he promised before the election that in the first year of a Labour government we'd deliver 2 million extra appointments. We didn't deliver 2 million, or 3 or 4. We delivered 5 million extra appointments. He's doing a great job, as is the whole of my cabinet.
A clear show of support for Streeting, the PM less clear about the man leading his Number 10 operation as Kemi Badenoch goaded him.
Mr. Speaker, what we heard the Health Secretary say this morning was that he wants to cut waiting lists, but we all know that there's only one waiting list that he really wants to cut. These attacks came from Number 10, nowhere else, his toxic Number 10. The person responsible for the culture in Number 10 is his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. Does the Prime Minister have full confidence in him?
Well, Morgan McSweeney, my team and I are absolutely focused on delivering for the country. And let me be clear, of course, Mr Speaker, I've never authorised attacks on Cabinet members. I appointed them to their posts because they're the best people to carry out their jobs. This is a united team and we are delivering together. Look what we're doing. The fastest growth in the G7.
Deafening jeers met that claim. This lot look beaten, and their opposition know it. Some in the Cabinet, though, trying to push on.
Has the Prime Minister lost control, and is there a toxic environment within Number 10?
No, I don't accept that at all. Across the whole Cabinet, led by the Prime Minister, we're getting on with the job.
It's been a messy, almost farcical 24 hours as attempts by the Prime Minister's allies to shore up his position and see off a potential leadership challenge has backfired in a spectacular fashion and left him looking even weaker ahead of a difficult budget. And look, all of it matters because the chatter is real. A growing number of his MPs are worried about Keir Starmer's ability to lead Labour into the next general election. All this saga does is reinforce those doubts and make the November budget and the May local elections doubly dangerous for the PM. The Prime Minister trying to front this up, but his political capital draining away fast. And he's got even harder days ahead. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
So to come on the UK tonight, tributes to the Victims Commissioner, Baroness Newlove, who has died at the age of 63. We'll be discussing her legacy. Also ahead, we'll be talking about a new book which could help children living with a rare skin condition. And the UK gets another chance to catch a glimpse of the Northern Lights. We'll tell you why tonight's display could be even more spectacular.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the President as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
The Victims Commissioner for England and Wales, Helen Newlove, has died at the age of 63 after a short illness. Baroness Newlove became a leading campaigner for victims' rights after her husband Gary was murdered by a gang of teenagers outside their home in 2007. Today, the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, paid tribute to Baroness Newlove, calling her an extraordinary public servant. Well, let's speak now to Dame Vera Baird, who replaced Baroness Newlove as Victims Commissioner in 2019. Dame Vera, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Surprising and sad news. Baroness Newlove dying after a short illness. Your reaction when you heard the news? You knew her well.
I did, but I was not ready for this. This was a complete tragedy. She died quite quickly, I think, of the disease that took her, and what an appalling loss. You know, she was 63 only. She was in the Lords, of course. She was engaged in the current Victims Bill, though she was leaving the Victims Commissioner role. It had been her own. I mean, the Victims Commissioner had one person for a year, then Helen for 6, then me for 3, and then Helen again. So it's been virtually, you know, her, all its life, it's virtually been occupied by Helen, and the changes she's brought are remarkable. And she would have carried on doing that in the House of Lords, I know. I worked with her very well. She persuaded me when she wanted to leave that I should become the Victims Commissioner if I could, and supported me when I did. She saw herself as an ordinary woman who, as you've just said, you know, was thrown into the criminal tragedy, 2 young daughters, a lost husband, and her experiences there, where she felt that she didn't have all her needs and her girls didn't have the needs that should have been met. It's a long time ago, of course, and a lot of things have improved, but that's because she turned that pain into an absolute resolution that ordinary people, as she always called herself, like her, should have better treatment when catastrophic things just change their lives. She was the doughtiest of fighters for victims, and she was also extraordinarily empathetic and kind. So she was a lovely woman, as well as a very, very fierce supporter of victims of crime.
Baroness Newlove, as you said, became a fierce campaigner before she became Victims Commissioner, working to combat youth crime and antisocial behaviour because of the story surrounding her family and what happened to her husband, Gary, and it really drove everything she did. I wonder if you can remember the first time you met her, because, you know, a lot of people describe her as a force of nature. She was driven, and she worked with so much compassion because she had been in the shoes of the people she went on to represent as Victims Commissioner. Perhaps you can talk to us about your first encounter with her and your first impressions.
Yes, I was a Police and Crime Commissioner, and I became the victims representative for the whole Association of Police and Crime Commissioners. So obviously she came to me as somebody doing, you know, a much smaller but sort of equivalent role to her, so we could discuss what to do. And she absolutely was a force of nature. I mean, she came through the door like a sort of, you know, well, she was powerful, and, you know, we shook hands, we talked, we sat down, and we got on extremely well. And she asked what we were doing. She talked to some victims who I brought along especially for her, and it was very clear then that she sympathised totally with them. When I became the Victims Commissioner, since I was not myself a victim of serious crime, and not therefore, you know, powered in quite the same way, I felt that I had a lot of catching up to do in terms of being empathetic with people. But she was, firstly, you know, very doughty with those who sought to get into her way, in her way, to improve victims' rights. But she was at the same time extremely sympathetic and good to talk to. And she herself did an enormous amount of personal good to victims she met through that approach.
Yeah, and Dame Vera, being, as she described herself, an ordinary person who, I'm sure she wouldn't say this, but we can say it on her behalf, went on to do extraordinary things because she was so ordinary, and because of her unique experience as a victim herself, she could speak very plainly to politicians and people in power, people who had the ability to change the experience for victims, not just as victims of crime, but as part of their journey through the justice system, because she knew that compassion and dignity mattered. So the way she treated politicians, whatever government or, you know, MPs are in place at the time, she treated them as ordinary people in trying to get her point across, and that's what made her so effective.
I think that's absolutely right, and I think when she first was exposed to Westminster, I think for a short time she felt patronised as the ordinary person she felt she was. You're absolutely right to describe her as extraordinary. There is no more appropriate word. And she soon, you know, toughened up, as it were, to that dismissiveness that she first found. She found her way around Westminster. She knew how to put pressure on where it should be. She had a very strong voice. She organised the office that she had extremely effectively. So she really optimised, you know, her feelings were clear. She was very partisanly pro-victim. They were not getting what they deserved. They needed more support. They needed more information. They needed to be treated with dignity and restored through the criminal justice process, not further traumatised by it. And she was very plain speaking, and she gained a lot of confidence very early. And exactly as you say, she was able to talk to the judiciary, she was able to talk to cabinet ministers, she was able equally to talk to victims' charities and tell them that perhaps they should do things in a different way to have maximum effect. She really was a force of nature.
Her brilliant life that she went on to build, championing others, fueled by her love of her husband, Gary, and, you know, wanting to do right by her daughters as well, cut short at just the age of 63. It's such a loss to her family. We send them our condolences, but it's such a loss to us all because, you know, only recently she commissioned research into the victims of crime and their experience in the justice system, the report uncovering repeated examples of victims being denied a voice in this justice process. And she said at the time when that report came out, these findings should trouble us all. We have a great deal of work to do to rebuild the victim confidence in the justice system. Her legacy is unquestionable, but she herself knew that there was so much more to do. And I think, you know, forgive me for saying this, I'm sure you may agree, but she will want that work to continue with the same ferocity that she approached it. How important is that as part of her legacy?
Well, it's absolutely imperative. That last report, as you say, showed that there is still a long way to go in the way that, as she would put it, ordinary people are dealt with by the criminal justice system in a particular time of weakness, when they have been rendered vulnerable by being victims, when they're afraid of what might happen, and when they're probably quite intimidated by the criminal justice system. There is still a lot of work to do to make sure that the Victims Code, which contains rights for such people, are properly implemented by the police, the CPS and the courts. And she reported just very recently that despite all of our efforts, and particularly her drive, that had not been fully accomplished. There is a job to do. The person who takes it up will have a legacy to contend with, but it will be one that she will carry forward with pride. And we will all remember Helen for the wonderful, kind friend that she was to myself personally, to people she met personally, but overwhelmingly personally to victims, and systematically determined to drive their interests and put their interests first. It was a remarkable transformation from an ordinary woman working as, I think, a legal secretary at the time, into this absolutely stalwart national figure who feared nothing. So well was she driven by the task that faced her. She really is a huge loss.
Yeah, what an incredible woman. Dame Verabed, really good to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much for coming on to talk to us, to remember Baroness Newlove, who has died after a short illness at the age of just 63. We appreciate your tribute. Thank you. So to come on the UK Tonight, we'll hear from a mother on a mission to help her daughter and other children cope with a rare skin condition. That's on the way next. Now, my next guests tonight are hoping to raise awareness and reduce stigma around a skin condition called CMN. It's a genetic condition where babies are born with dark birthmarks, which can cover up to 80% of their body. CMN raises the risk of melanoma and can lead to social difficulties for children growing up with the condition. I'm joined in the studio tonight by Dahlia Gain. She's written a book inspired by her own daughter, Alice, which aims to help children cope with visible differences. Alongside her tonight, Jodie Whitehouse from the charity Caring Matters Now, which helps families affected by CMN. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for coming in. This is a condition that we have spoken about before here on Sky News. But Jodie, it's worth reminding people what CMN stands for and what it is, essentially.
Yeah, sure. So CMN stands for congenital melanocytic nevus. And just as you described there, it's a large dark brown birthmark that can cover up to 80% of the body. It can also grow internally as well. So if it grows on the brain or the spine, then it can be a fatal condition. So the condition does go beyond the skin. And Caring Matters Now, we support over 800 families across the UK and worldwide who are affected by CMN, such as Dahlia and her lovely family. And to be here tonight and to talk about a book that Dahlia's written to raise awareness of CMN and to also educate people about CMN and visible differences is just a real treat for us.
Yeah, I've got the book here. It's a children's book because your entry into the CMN community, Dahlia, happened nearly 5 years ago now, when your daughter Alice was born. And Alice is the inspiration for this book. And you can see her depicted here on the front cover, and there she is behind you. And you can see her birthmark on her forehead there. Looks a little bit like a fringe. But talk to me about what happened when you gave birth, because something we've discussed before, Jodie, is not just the lack of awareness in the general public, but amongst medical professionals as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really tough time when she was born. It was during the second lockdown in the UK, and when she was born, there was no knowledge of it straight away. So we were just left in a room by ourselves with a new baby and a clear skin condition that we had no idea what it meant for her. Within 24 hours, we did our own research, and one of the doctors from the hospital ended up telling us it could be this. After some research, we got led to the charity, and the rest is history. Yeah, so it's been fantastic.
And you've entered into this community where
it's been brilliant.
Not only the children get support, but parents as well, of course, because it can be an unsettling time for you because, you know, you're born with this condition. A lot of people confuse congenital with hereditary, but congenital means being born with something. So the children know nothing until they get to an age where they socialise with others. And, you know, it can be difficult for the child affected, but also those around them in knowing how to treat someone with a visible difference. And this was the subject of your book, Diddy, the Wolf and the Starry Tattoos. Dahlia, talk to me about the premise of the book and what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so the book is about a child with a visible difference starting school. Parents are not around anymore, so the parents should have ideally try to give them some tools. So my aim of the book is to give them the tools to navigate the questions and the stares they may face during a new environment. And it could be the first experience that they get, they're kind of aware that they're getting asked these questions. They may not have ever been aware of it before because either the parent steps in or they're just a bit oblivious to it. They're children at the end of the day. So it just kind of navigates the school environment and takes her on a journey to find out that there is potentially an entire community out there that looks like her. And it's beyond just her own skin condition, it's the wider visible difference community that I want to include in this. Anyone really out there that's ever felt different.
Yeah, because 1 in 5 people in the UK have a visible difference, Jodie, don't they? And what's the end goal of raising awareness in terms of, obviously, early diagnosis, understanding what you're dealing with as a parent when it happens, also, you know, making it normal for children to be able to, you know, talk to any child regardless of their visible difference. But what else happens with the awareness about this condition?
I think we really want to educate healthcare professionals about CMN, so they grow in their knowledge and the right care is put in place for every child.
Yeah, because that is the point, isn't it? Care. Do people live with this condition for their entire lives? Can they treat it? Can they have it removed? What's the journey for people?
So there's no real effective treatment for CMN, but we have been funding research that's been taking place through Great Ormond Street Hospital and the Francis Crick Institute, and a potential treatment has been developed in the lab And that's really impactful for families who suffer with CMN even beyond the skin. So CMN can grow quite big nodules on it, it can be itchy, it can be quite debilitating in some cases. So to have an effective treatment that can help children thrive is quite key for us. So that's work we're doing alongside this book. But really our aim for this book is we want it to enable all children to be able to embrace who they are, whatever difference it is. If it's CMN or any other visible difference, they can celebrate their difference. They are unique and beautiful in who they are. We also want to empower parents, so for parents to be able to use this book and empower them to be able to open up conversation about visible differences.
Presumably.
Schools, we literally said this the other day, this book is perfect for every classroom, every library and every home, because it just enables a conversation to start about visible difference in a really positive light. And as well, we want to educate people about CMN and about visible differences as a whole, and this book really does that too.
It's such a lovely story, gorgeously illustrated. I wonder how Alice's journey has been so far, because, you know, while this is so positive, we know that there will be bumps in the road for Alice while she navigates this as she's growing up amongst her peers. How are you preparing her for that? Obviously, this book is all part of that, but is she aware, and what's it like in her social interactions? How is she navigating it all?
She started to become aware around 2 years old. She started to try and kind of wipe her legs or play with them or start calling them dots, so we started to count them. So that's how it started, and then I had this idea that she's starting school. I really wanted to take a book in for her to introduce herself and just get it kind of discussed straight away, so she can just enjoy her childhood without constantly being asked by a new person, what is this, what is this, what is this? So I felt like it was just a really, it was based on our experiences, all the questions that were in the book as well, and just navigating that.
Okay. So Alicia looks like a happy little girl. Look at this, she looks so happy, and look, she's got a copy of the book there. How is she feeling about seeing herself portrayed in this book?
She's been so excited. Yeah, when she received the first copy of the book, she was elated, and her brothers as well are jumping around her. It's just phenomenal. She just goes through the pages and just telling everybody about the book. It's fantastic. It's going to hopefully do something strong for her.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Dahlia, for coming in to talk to us about Diddy the Wolf and the Starry Tattoo, starring your very own daughter, Alicia, and to Jodie as well. Always good to talk to you, and we're so pleased to be able to raise awareness once again about CMN and the huge community that you're now part of and that you've formed helping others. The book's available now. Good luck with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, still to come on the programme tonight, we'll tell you which parts of the UK could catch another glimpse of the Northern Lights tonight. And we have breaking news from the world of boxing. Anthony Joshua holding talks over a fight with Jake Paul. We'll bring you the details after the break.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for? Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal? Not like you said it.
From the UK?
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shots rang out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay.
Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first. Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality. Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war. The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
Now, in the past few minutes, UEFA has officially launched Euro 2028, which will be held in the UK and Ireland in 3 years' time. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris joins me now from the launch. Rob, what details are we getting tonight?
Well, we know that Euro 2028 will open in Cardiff at the main stadium there on the 9th of June in 2028, the final at Wembley. And it'll be 3 hours earlier, actually, than previous men's Euros finals, a 5 p.m. kickoff. But for England, well, they'll open, if they qualify, at Manchester City's stadium before completing the rest of the group stage at Wembley. Potentially, if they win their group, the last 16 game will be at Newcastle. If they're second in the group, it will be Everton. Then if they keep on going through, we'll be playing through at Wembley. But we have the brand now, we've got the trophy here. We've also got Michael Owen, former England striker, here. What's it like to you to experience a tournament? Are you thinking about a tournament being hosted in England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland?
I was very impressed with you remembering all those different scenarios and venues. That's amazing. No, it's you know, having a home competition is fantastic. I mean, I remember growing up, or I was just actually approaching making my first team debut for Liverpool when Euro 96 was on in England, and it's just so inspiring for young people, certainly somebody like myself, hoping to be a professional footballer. And this next generation are going to have a wonderful time seeing it close up, almost being part of that tournament. And yeah, I mean, it's just exceptional. It gives you a little advantage as well. Obviously, you know, past winners. There's been a lot of past winners that host tournaments, so hopefully it's our turn.
And the three lions, if they qualify, playing away from Wembley, so the country gets to see them in Manchester City, but also at Newcastle, which of course you know St James's Park so well. What it mean for them in the North East if they win their group?
Well, I had a little sample of that when the new Wembley was getting built. We took the England team all over the country. And I thought it was brilliant for a couple of years. It's great, you know, that people can see their national team in their local stadiums. So we have had a taste of that before. I think it's a good thing. Of course, no matter where we go, we're going to be well supported in our own country. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see who we draw. It's exciting to see the path that we take, especially when it's a home competition.
And for players, it can now motivate them, whatever stage they're at. So I think actually it's 3 years. There's a lot of change in the England team these days. Players get opportunities and they're suddenly in maybe where they weren't in contention a year ago.
Exactly that. I mean, who knows? We're probably already starting to think, right, what could the England team look like in 3 years? I'm sure there will be plenty of change. There are one or two players that are getting a bit long in the tooth, let's say, from a footballer's point of view. But it's just so exciting. I mean, you know, everybody wants to win a big tournament. You know, England have obviously won in 1966, but to do it on home soil would be just incredible. And you know, we've got high hopes, obviously, in the upcoming competitions. But 3 years' time, a home competition in the Euros would be astonishing. And we've got such a young side. You know, we've got so many talent. All our teams at under 21 level, under 17 level, were so successful at that stage of their career. So hopefully there's going to be more players coming through the pipeline as well.
Well, 3 years to look forward to. Thanks for joining us live on Sky News.
Pleasure. Cheers.
Well, of course, the three Lions trying to do what the Lionesses have done, which is win the Euros, back-to-back Euros finals they've won. The three Lions have reached back-to-back finals, but haven't managed to lift the trophy yet. Now they can look forward. Wales will be playing all their group games at home as well, as will Scotland if they qualify, and Glasgow at Handham, and Ireland if they qualify will play in their home games in Dublin in the group stage, that is. This event is over. Something to note, and it shows how political football can be outside quite heavy pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli protests, which drowned out part of this event by Piccadilly Circus. The Football Association of Ireland just days ago passing a motion to advance with UEFA moves to get Israel banned from football and ultimately banned from events like these men's Euros taking place across the UK. Incidentally, Northern Ireland lost out on games, but they will be hosting the finals draw for the tournament.
Rob Harris, thank you so much. Jess is here with the rest of the sport. Are you excited for 3 years' time?
Cannot wait. Can we get the World Cup out of the way first?
Yeah, come on, you're on Sky Sports News. Have a word. We should get the 3-year countdown clock up and running already.
Why have we not got that?
Couldn't man that every day. I'm sure it'd go awry. But we are excited about the Ashes. Slightly less time to go until that. 9 days until the first test in Perth. And we just a couple of weeks ago were talking about the sledging that was already happening between the England and Australia players, but I've never known it happen between current England players and former England players.
I know. Ben Stokes has really been under fire, hasn't he, in the last couple of weeks? We saw how the Australian media reacted to him when he landed in Australia, but now he's had some scrutiny and some criticism from his fellow Englishmen, and not just any Englishman, Ian Botham, Michael Vaughan, greats of the game, England legends, former captains. They've said that England's preparations for this Ashes series isn't good enough. They've labelled it as risky because they believe that this England team should be playing Australian domestic teams in the run-up to help them prepare, as they should be preparing, for this Ashes test. Instead, this England team will be playing just the one match against an England's Lions team, essentially an in-house England team. Ben Stokes, though, has faced this criticism head-on. He's labelled them as has-beens. Wonder how that will go down. The thing is with Stokes, he's very intentional in his approach. They've got this new way of playing called Bazball. It's very on the front foot. It's very forthright, just as Ben Stokes is himself. And in reaction to this criticism, he's basically just said, times are different now to how they were playing back in the 80s and 90s. Let's hear from Ben Stokes.
I don't really know what we're supposed to do, to be honest. You know, the schedule's pretty jam-packed to be able to sort of prepare, I think, how teams probably would have done 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago as well. So I think there's a lot of factors that have changed over the years of cricket. So, yeah, in terms of preparation, we've been preparing for this for a very long time.
Yeah, of course, England haven't won an Ashes series down under since 2011, so I'm sure this debate will rumble on. But it is just 9 days to go, SJ. We're all very much looking forward to it. In the meantime, though, let me bring you the rest of the day's sports.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
The club made a great pitch to me, that they wanted me. They gave me a 4-year contract. All the stops were out. They made me feel really welcome.
We arrived at the airport there in Madrid, and there were 30, 40, 50 journalists, cameras, and we thought, oh, they come for this movie star, you know. Suddenly we see, Jesus Christ, Jimmy, it's for you.
It's always difficult losing a great player. Jimmy, for me, was always a world-class striker. Probably not talked about as much, I don't think, as to some of the other great strikers, but I was fortunate enough to play with him.
We obviously made a very good profit on him. If you just take the business transaction, not the football emotion, the transaction was a good deal because we bought him for £2 and we sold him for £12 million.
In 2 years.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, if you missed seeing the Northern Lights last night, fear not, because they could be even more spectacular this evening. Let's bring you the scene at St Mary's Lighthouse in Whitley Bay last night. Luckily, the sky's pretty clear, and this was the view. But why can we see them in the UK at the moment? Well, it's all because the sun is going through an active phase, which means that we're experiencing even more geomagnetic storms. Forecasters are saying tonight's storm is going to be even more intense and should be visible further south across England and Wales. So fingers crossed we'll have another chance to see them. But, of course, the big question, will the cloud get in the way? Let's have a look. Well, southern parts are looking mild but unsettled all week, while the north will turn drier and colder. It's going to be quite windy this evening, with coastal gales in the southwest and the far northwest, prolonged rain from central parts of Ireland through to western Wales and northern England. Elsewhere, many northern and southeastern parts are looking fine, but there'll be showers for northern Scotland, while the southwest will be drizzly. Central parts can expect locally heavy rain for a time tonight, but that will become largely confined to southern Scotland and northern England and Northern Ireland. Meanwhile, there'll be a few showers wintry on Scottish peaks, while the southeast will see more general rain later. It's going to be cold in the north, mild elsewhere, and windy. So maybe not the best conditions tonight, but take a peek and see what you can see. That's it from the UK Tonight. We're back tomorrow night at 8. Up next, it's The World with Anna Botting in the hot seat tonight.